Hey legends, and welcome back to the least knowledgeable sim racing channel, coming to you again with a casually late review of the new Assetto Corsa Competizione DLC. Of all the content released for this sim thus far, the British GT probably excites me the most. Why, you ask? With great trepidation and bated breath? Because it features one of the bumpiest tracks in the world and my second favourite overall racetrack next to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, Oulton Park. This track is basically a miniature Nordschleife set up around a park in central England. While it's not one of the most famous racetracks in the world, it provides some of the most exciting racing for simulated GT cars because the track is so narrow, bumpy, and riddled with utterly masochistic curbing. It's a track where the phrase, "who dares wins," rings true, and your courage is often rewarded with either great success or complete failure. Along with Oulton Park, we also have the legendary Donington Park and Snetterton. Neither of these need any introduction, so what we'll do instead is get straight into the driving. Before we do, however, make sure you're subscribed and belled up to get notified of our follow-up feature with a manic, full-grid race at Oulton Park. What's good, guys? Welcome to Oulton Park. I've literally just bought the British GT Pack. These are some of my first laps. I've just woken up. It's literally some of my first laps of the day, so I want to make sure we capture some fresh reactions and I can get you guys the sensation of what this is actually going to be like the very first time you drive your first out laps, I guess. Alright, nice and easy. Get the pit limiter on. Engine on, manual. Let's get out of here with nice and cold tires. This is going to be fun. It's going to be about 2-3 laps of me struggling to keep this thing on the track, so let's go. It's a track I am very, very familiar with, thanks to a friend of mine who introduced me to it originally in Project Cars 2, of all games. Okay, car a lot more balanced than it was on the default aggressive setup, that's for sure. Had to do some rake adjustments. And she's pretty good. So, without a doubt, the bumpiest circuit in all of ACC now. Definitely, it puts the game to the test in a very different way to the standard array of FIA-approved F1 style tracks, because you kind of get to feel out the damper behavior, the limit behavior, how it handles ridiculously brutal curbs. So that chicane, whereas in AMS2 and R-Factor, you can literally just fly over the curbs, the tires just absorb everything. In ACC, it's a bit of a different story. You'll kind of just judder and bounce around everywhere, so you've got to be far more careful in how you take certain things. You can see some of that limit behavior at play. Now, it's a bit of a... My first couple of laps in this have been a bit of a... I don't know, both a love and hate affair, because on one hand, it's one of the best, if not the best, rendering of Oulton Park in sim racing. But on the other hand, it really relies on the physics engine's limit behavior to get you that on the fly sort of seat of the pants sensation. That's something that both AMS2 and R-Factor 2 do really well. They have a lot of, whether or not it's realistic, they have a lot of dynamism going on. Whereas in ACC, things are feeling a little more staggered, a little more broken, a little more on or off. And while in some ways it's really cool because it makes you have to be very careful about how you mount these curbs, about how you take these corners, it doesn't quite feel as engaging as I hoped for. I think I'd built this up in my mind to be like the best experience ever. And certainly, if I were to improve my driving, that would help a lot. But there's a lot to be gained. That's for sure. Especially the chicane. I simply can't work out how to take it in a GT3 here in ACC. It's so different to the other two titles. Like, I lose so much more speed. I normally fly right over that curb. It's not a problem at all, but if you do it in this, you'll literally just bounce everywhere. So, I mean, I really respect that kind of thing. I love the rendering of the track. I love the little details. I love all the details of the curbing. I don't love the limit behavior there. On that corner, it consistently feels very vague and bizarre compared to all the other sims I've driven Oulton in. So again, it's a bit of a love and hate. Whereas that one's a little bit better. At high speed. Feels a little more connected. My lap times, of course, being extremely woeful, but we'll work on those over time, guys. These are our first few laps after all. Still feeling out the limits. We'll do maybe one more. See what we can do. I should really push the car a bit more. Oh man, you can see as you hook in those curbs, it's just brutal. Completely disqualified that lap. As it should be. Oh man. So definitely some damper mode ticking required. I can feel the car losing more traction than it should. My guess is the dampers are defaulting to a setting that's harder than it should be for a track that's this soft. And some balancing of the soft damp settings essentially, or rather the slow damp settings when I'm on and off throttle. Maybe some of that preload differential as well, because I can feel the car's balance shifting as I get on and off the throttle. And this is one of those tracks where you have to really kind of get on and off the throttle mid-corner. So there's definitely a lot to be gained from setups, I think, on this track, at least for the 720S. Maybe some of the other cars default to something more drivable. A little more understeer than I'd like on that corner, but again, that's a car setup thing and a bad Ermin driving thing. Yeah, car takes a little bit longer to hook in than I'd like. But otherwise, guys, the bumps are amazing. The track detail is amazing. In terms of what you actually get from the DLC itself, it's so... Yeah, that limit behavior, ACC's Achilles heel. Every time I feel it, it's just like, that's not how a car feels on the limit. But that being said, I'm loving the track. Absolutely gorgeous. We're going to move on to Donington Park, another one of my favorite tracks. I can't wait to check it out, so let's get into it. Okay, so we're here in a very, very cloudy Donington Park. I've just done my very first out lap just to make sure the tune of the car is okay. We'd actually get a good lap out of it, and the default aggressive setup is actually pretty decent on the 720S, so we'll go from there. I've made a small adjustment. I've softened the rear suspension because the car was a little bit too oversteery at speed. What am I doing? Looks like I forgot how to turn on an engine. Gotta say, the first lap of this was amazing. So the best version of this track I've driven is probably the one from AMS, which very clearly isn't ground laser scanned, which you can tell immediately after driving this one. There's so many more micro bumps. There's so much more going on. It immediately makes the track more engaging to drive, less flat, and I need to warm up my tires before I do that again. Ah, there we go, that's better. One click of rear suspension, guys, made all the difference. So there's so much more micro detail, it almost makes the track slightly different to drive. It's very bizarre. Third? Yes, and the curbs are way more brutal. They're less just kind of planted there, kind of hoping for the best. They have their own specific character, each curbing on each corner. That's what I love about Kunoz, laser scanning all of their tracks. Really, really cool. Really, really, really super cool. Chicane is more brutal than I remember. Our lap times are of course going to be nothing spectacular as we just feel our way around these tracks for the very first time. One thing that does interest me about this is, you know, what's the limit behavior like on some of the high speed corners. So as we push it on the next, I guess, more hot lap, we're going to see how we go. Still trying to get my brake points down with this car. It's a little bit different to what I'm used to. Again, it's just my my second lap of the track ever. It's so exciting. I really do love laser scanning and what it's done for sim racing. Alright, let's, nope. Ooh, some of that, limit vagueness right there. Definitely some of these corners reveal one of the major shortfalls of the physics engine left in this title. Like, this safe soaring at the limit thing. Okay, alright, cool, I'll take it, whatever. We'll get used to it. It's very different to how you would approach this in R-Factor and AMS2, that's for sure. It gets a lot less of that progressive grip loss and a lot more of that vagueness. It's such a strange double-edged sword, guys, because I love the tracks. I mean, this is probably the best version of Donington in Simrate, but look at that, right? That's not what happens. It's so weird. It's a bizarre dichotomy, because on one hand I love the track, but it's revealing some of the shortfalls of the physics engine. Yeah, it's just the constant seesawing. It's really bizarre. I feel almost like Niels Heusinkveld, except I deliver things in a far more, less pleasant manner, if you will, I guess. A lot more people tend to get triggered by those kind of comments, but Niels has very much echoed these same sentiments about the driving model, and these tracks, for some reason, reveal it more than most. Now, I'm going to do maybe 1 or 2 more laps of Donington, because it's, well, the last track that I actually know. I never really drive Snetterton. I don't really know what it's all about. So what I might do at Snetterton is drive a GT4 nice and slow and see how the GT4s handle on some of these tracks. So I have no doubt that Snetterton also is the best version of itself in this game. I mean, Kunos have done an absolutely stellar job with rendering these tracks. Just trying to avoid that limit vagueness. Every lap it's getting a little bit better. Nah, that's not it. These are not the droids you're looking for. It's so weird. It's so unengaging. That's one of the things that keeps getting me. ACC is so good in so many ways, but that's the one Achilles heel. It just doesn't feel right at the limit. I've had the same thing said to me repeatedly. I'm very fortunate to know guys who are very, very high level drifters who basically live their entire lives around driving cars beyond the parameters they were designed for, and the unanimous agreement is basically that this game just feels very strange on the limit, which is something that I felt for a very, very long time, and for some reason these tracks seem to reveal more than most. Bad driving notwithstanding, of course, these being the first few laps I've ever done. What do we think? One more. We'll do one more. We'll see where we can push it. It would... Not there, Omen. It would have been nice to get a run-up, to get a few days of being able to actually try these out before rushing out the review video, but it is what it is. We're here. I want to make sure this is out nice and early so you guys can make a decision, at least informed a little bit my plebby opinion. The track quality, the things that you get from the DLC itself are so far immaculate. I mean, Oulton Park, Donington, these are the best versions of both tracks I've ever driven. But that, every time on that corner, like that mid-speed grip loss is so weird. It's so weird. There's so much random seesawing where you just feel nothing. Like, you just feel nothing. That's so weird. But the track is amazing. So it's like, take your pick, you know? Then you hook in those little things, you feel all those little details of the curbing and the apex, and it just feels great. It's such a bipolar experience for me. All right, across the finish line, this will be our last one. Almost getting it now. Alright, cool guys, that was Donington Park. Absolutely amazing. The best version of Donington Park I've driven in all of sim racing, easily, without a shadow of a doubt. If a better one exists somewhere, I'm not aware of it. So let's move on to Snetterton, the track I know least best. Welcome to a very, very wet Snetterton, my least known track out of all the British tracks out there. And it's kind of why I made it wet. I'm just like, maybe I can pull a fast one on them. Maybe they won't realize how much I suck if I just drive in really bad conditions and then just say, hey, it's going to be a bad lap time anyway. This is the very first time I've driven a GT4 in the wet, so it's quite an experience. It almost feels like slow motion racing, if the word racing can actually even be appended to the experience. Nice and reflective road surface there. It's interesting comparing this to Assetto Corsa with Soul, CSP and rain effects, being the official version of the wet weather experience. It's very, very funny trying to drive the GT4 in these conditions. It's so... the TC is just pulsing like mad. I'm still trying to work out what I'm doing. You just feel like you're going in slow motion. It's crazy. Now, if I recall right, this is a very, very hard braking zone up here. Deceptively so. Second, maybe? Maybe? I'm too afraid to turn the TC down, but you know what? I'll give it a shot. It's going to be the last thing I ever do, isn't it? Keep it on, keep it on. Lap time invalid, doesn't matter. It's an outlap anyway. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, this is just, I'm not used to having this little grip. Even in my road car, it's got an all-wheel drive system. So, it's a little bit different in the rain. Alright, here we go. Hook it in, Herman. Pretend you've done this before. Totally. Alright, so let's recap, because there's very little for me to say about Snetterton other than the fact that, I mean, this is very clearly the best version of it I've ever driven in sim racing. In terms of the value proposition of the DLC, I'm super impressed, personally, because my brakes aren't working. Because this entire DLC cost about just under 19 Australian dollars, which I believe should be somewhere in the range of about 10 euro, give or take. I mean, that is just slightly more than a single track in our factor, I believe. So it's a very strange thing. I mean, you're getting a lot of value in terms of what we're used to getting for DLC in sim racing. I would personally pay substantially more for content of this quality. The tracks are absolutely immaculate. Whether or not they reveal some of the shortfalls of the current physics engine or not is kind of immaterial, because that's not what the DLC is about. But the tracks themselves, what you're actually getting for this, I mean, I love. And of course, I love Donington. I love Oulton Park. I love Snetterton slightly less, but I think I can learn to love it with a rendering of this quality to actually have it properly laser scanned for once. I believe the AMS2 version might just be LiDAR'd, might just be an aerial scan, because it doesn't have that level of micro detail. What am I even doing? Just, I want to complete one lap without flying off the track, guys, and that's already been invalidated. Crossing over the white lines. Alright, brake hard. The hard braking zone. Hard braking zone. Maybe down to first? Oh my god, not to first. Alright, first gear in the McLaren isn't a usable gear. Cool. It's a launch gear. Live and learn. It's an experience. I'll say that much. Oh man. I can see why JB struggled so much at Snetterton. This is, in the wet. What an experience. Especially not knowing the track in my case. But maybe for the next British GT Championship, Mr. James Baldwin can practice a little bit better now that he's got all these tracks here in ACC. The go-to GT sim. Oh my god. It's crazy. It's crazy how little grip there is. It's crazy how little you're able to do at speed. I think it's going to take quite a while for me to string together a successful lap here, guys, so I apologize about that, but I'm doing what I can. Should have done the Camaro, so I could have just gone over the curbs. Would have been no problem. Okay, so as we cross the finish line for the last time in this DLC, I will be doing full races, probably starting with Oulton Park. I'll be getting a bit more familiarized with the courses themselves in ACC, getting an actual tune down for the cars so I can push it closer to the limit, get closer to those top times, and actually have a nice and exciting race, either against the AI or other people. I'm trying to line some up against some of our favorite sim racing content creator friends, so make sure you're subscribed to stay up to date with that. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the British DLC as much as I am. I can't wait to get stuck in a little bit more after these videos, after the day's errands are done. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.